Day of August. It's 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. I just actually posted 2 links below the video of the 2 pages that I uploaded today, which is 1,150 pictures of AI-generated depictions of what Fukushima. It was 150,000 sites where they stored 1-ton bags, and so nice farmland. 150,000 sites, all of them right alongside of farmlands or on farmlands. And at best, there's about 1,000 of the pictures available online that I can find. And whether you believe it or not, I'm a pretty good scrounger. Been known to scrounge up a few things about nuclear over the years. And so it means about 149,000 pictures are missing. Just give me 1 second. Sometimes, because I know it's hard to comprehend this, but I actually got a lot of pictures. All right, so Al Jazeera said there was 30 million 1-ton bags. There was a story from 2016 where they acknowledged 30 million tons of radioactive waste will eventually be moved to yet another third-level interim storage facility near the crippled site. So it's not from, well, it is from, but it's not collected at Fukushima nuclear Daiichi plant itself. It's collected in the farmlands around in the communities. The bags deteriorated after 3 years, meaning the waste has to be repackaged regularly, which means there should be about 1 million pictures out there. Here's another story, but this is 2019, where they acknowledged they had 105,000 sites at that time. In 2016, it was 150,000 sites of 1-ton bags. So what I done was created around 2,400 pictures of 1-ton bags that were missing. There's 149,000 of these pictures missing of the 30 million 1-ton bags. And 30 million 1-ton bags, let me see if I can find a picture to help articulate that in just a single sentence. I'll find a picture here in a second. Here we go. You can have a double-lane highway like that up there of 1-ton bags wrapped around the entire planet. If you picked up 10% of Fukushima, scratched up the surface, and the 30 million 1-ton bags represent 3% of Fukushima Prefecture, where they picked up the 1-ton bags of topsoil, basically. And what they were trying to do was convince people that scraping up the topsoil in a community or farmland made it somehow safe, despite the fact that the second it rains, everything is completely contaminated hideously again. And you can't extract it out of the soil by scratching up the top centimeter or 2. Imagine trying to scratch up 2 centimeters. And if I gave you a shovel and told you to go out and only scratch up less than an inch of the topsoil, you got any idea how incredibly difficult that would be? So imagine the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society trying to do that. So there's 149,000 sites, pictures of 1-ton bag sites that are missing. And along the way, I created some random pictures. They're going to be up there. And these pictures, for instance, are already up. It's 2 pages. Now, I screwed up my site today. And so my normal front page got moved. I can't find it. I sent an email, and we'll see if we'll get back from. But anyway, if you go to the site, the page you're going to get at my website is going to be the headlines page. And on the headline page is all kinds of stories. So it's a good page. And also, the first two stories you're going to run into are going to be a total of 1,150 pictures. And journalists are out there just being ridiculous fools. Murderers, I guess is a better way to put it. Ridiculous fools. So just bear with me. I forgot to plug in the external. We'll get it. Here we go. Rock and roll. Jack Cousteau. Should stupid Japan. I had other choice words, but I decided to go with stupid. Be ashamed of themselves. I had other words for themselves. For poisoning everyone on Earth with radioactive food. And the best way to get cancer is to eat food from Japan. The best way to have heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, is to eat food from Japan. There it is in a nutshell. And the picture is probably a little bit dark tonight. I had to dial back the lights because I'm wearing a white shirt. And a white shirt is rather difficult for me to do my tricks with. It's even worse on this. That's okay. And that's okay by eye. Let's keep going here. I'm not going to wear a white shirt too often anyway. Okay, so I want to talk about, and this is the third show this week, where we talk about, where I'm trying to convince the world that they better get their act together, and you only get one kick at this can, because once you eat this stuff, it sequesters in your muscles, your organs, and your bones, and it wrecks your immune system on top of that. And so it makes you vulnerable to all kinds of pathogens and viruses and diseases that were normally considered harmless and innocuous and benign. And if you think that you're special and that radiation doesn't hurt you because you're special in your little worlds, you were sadly mistaken and fatally flawed. There was 14,000 immediately after Fukushima. There was a spike in people dropping dead of heart attacks. Was an extra 14,000 U.S. dead. That was revised to 20,000 a few weeks later. Now that only covered a couple of states. So the deaths would have been significant immediately from the radioactive fallout. And radioactive fallout is not a game. And my goodness, we had a little too much for the species. Fox. Is iodine-131 killing babies in Philadelphia? That's not part of the other study, by the way. Deaths are up 48% since radiation levels spiked in the tap water. Spiked in the tap water. That doesn't give you the woolies, what does? And of course, suggesting iodine-131 was the one you're worried about is a far cry from any type of reality. The biggest byproduct of radiative fuel rod is not going to be iodines or cesium. It's going to be curium isotopes. And curium isotopes, well, let me explain the curium isotopes to you, actually, because that's kind of important for this set of videos in particular. It's unusual. We're doing an unusual set of videos this week, and it's a necessary set. It's just a terrible story, eh? Terrible, terrible stories. Get used to it. If you're looking at nuclear, terrible is the flavor. All right, so toxicity of inhaled plutonium dioxide in beagle dogs. This was a study on 144 beagle dogs and puppies. And death from radiation occurred about 1.5 to 4.5 years after they were assaulted with radiation. Tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, and liver, 3 tumors in typical animal, begins about 3 years after exposure. Bone tumors, now death began 3 years after exposures from a single inhalation. So if it's a single meal, a single liter of contaminated drinks from Japan, or a single liter of contaminated, or a single kilogram of this or that, you could be in real trouble 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, where you're liquidating all your assets in order to get another couple of months of misery out of yourself. Liver tumors, which were found in 20 dogs. Lung tumors in 46 dogs were the second most common cause of death. And skeleton tumors, bone tumors, found in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death. Yummy. I can't wait. Tumors in these 3 organs often occurred in the same animal, and they think of you as an animal, by the way, so don't feel about being rude to these people. And were competing causes of death. These findings in dogs suggest a similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed. How can it be accidentally exposed? This industry shouldn't exist. They knew that these adverse side effects were catastrophic. And when you take 144 dogs and they all died of 3 different tumors, now they say similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed. But there's a problem with that narrative. It turns out it was discovered that the human kidneys are at least 50 times less efficient than animal kidneys at removing the plutonium. In other words, the dogs were 50 times more efficient at excreting the plutonium out of their body, and you're not. They all died, and you will too if you get the stuff in you, or your children, and they did. And I don't know how to sugarcoat the story, so I'm not going to try. But it gets worse, much worse, 20 times worse. Cesium, or curium compounds in dogs applicable to the human exposure data. The curium isotopes are a major byproduct, are the major, not a major, but are the major byproduct of the radiated nuclear fuel. And so forget about these comprise a significant fraction of the alpha emitter, because there's so much alpha, it's heartbreaking. Now you need lead shielding 20 times thicker for the curium isotope, which is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod, as you do for the dogs. And the dogs all died in all their studies, and their kidneys are 50 times more efficient at removing the plutonium than your kidney. So you need 50 times less than those dogs, and those dogs never had very much. And if your loved ones and friends and families and children and everybody else, you got anybody in your family been dying of random turbo cancers and everything else, guess what? You can go thank Japan. And you can thank the nuclear industry that has censored us for all of these years, so you didn't have a chance to understand it and avoid being poisoned by this shithead country and this shithead industry. Oh man, we got rain right now. I don't know where it came from either. Woo! It's raining here as I talk. My goodness. That's not good at all when I'm listening to it. That's actually frightening. Fukushima forecast shows cesium-137 and iodine-131 over northwestern United States of America, which meant that the forecast also was showing you are buried in plutonium and curium isotopes too. You can't have one without the other. Oh my. So when you see radioactive iodine 131 in Pennsylvania rainwater in samples at 3,300%, 3,000. Remember, this stuff is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. So when you see stories like this and you're, oh no, well, I'm in Pennsylvania, but it didn't hurt me. I'm okay. Look at me. You're speaking too quick. Which, if you find 131, is going to be saturated with the plutonium and it's going to be saturated with the curium. Period. That's simply the way it works. Pretending it doesn't means you're stupid. EPA radioactive iodine levels in the rainwater exceeded the maximum contaminated levels permitted in drinking water. And they like to use iodine 131 because it has a short half-life and it lulls you. And they do this a billion percent on purpose. Because you look it up and you say, oh, well, honey, it's only got a 3-month lifespan, so it's all gone by now. And I can play the clips of these scumbags, pro-nuclear communities saying stuff like that. Like Lake Barrett, for instance. Degenerate Lake Barrett, I should say. Fukushima fallout in New Hampshire at 1,200 atoms per square meter in the sediment. And then there would have been 12,000 atoms. It would have been 220 million atoms per liter of rainfall. It would have been of iodine 129 with a 15 million year half-life. There would have been 20 million atoms of iodine 131 per liter of rainfall. There would have been the cesium at up to 12 million per cubic meter of air. There would have been sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs at 1,500 atoms per cubic meter of air. There was xenon at 450,000 atoms per cubic meter of air at the same time. There would have been, and this is all studies that we can quantify. What they do is, like, they recognize iodine, they recognize cesium, and they do a mathematical equation, extrapolate all of these other numbers. And then they go and do the surveys and studies, and sure enough, and then they quantify it that way, right? Nasty. This is an industry that is out to get you, and you're letting them. You're sitting there and letting them get away with it. If you had 100 people like out there speaking about this stuff, the industry couldn't live very long. If you had 1,000 people out there like this, the industry would just implode. It's already imploding because I exist and you exist. Last year there was only 2 nuclear plants. There was 2 nuclear plants that went offline. They had no extra gigawatts added to their inventories. Renewables was 507 gigawatts, which is 575 large nuclear reactors coming online in 12 months. This is a despicable industry. There's nothing they won't do. They'll kill every child on this planet. Won't blink an eye. Once they graduate university, there's serial killers. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. Well, I am sugarcoating it, actually. Former Department of Energy official criticizes UC Berkeley professor for comparing ingestion of radioactive iodine to air travel. And so, like, you get on a plane, the radiation you're getting got nothing to do with something from a chain reaction. It's got nothing to do with anthropogenic man-made radiation. It's it might be some solar radiation that causes some damage to your cells, but your body repairs that right away. But when the radiation is in your body it's pulsing at the speed of light in every direction in your body, is wrecking millions and millions and millions and trillions of chromosomes and DNA every second. Your body has to repair every one of them every second for the rest of your life, because that's what it's going to do every second for the rest of your life. At the same time, your body's going to do that with white blood cells, by the way. In order to produce all these white blood cells, you have to displace the red blood cells. And red blood cells carry oxygen and nutrition. You know, it's really important, particularly for insects and birds and mammals and animals and their babies and that. And this stuff just wipes out everything. And it assaults you with all these diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. Let me keep going here. Let me see here. Arkansas milk 300% above the EPA's maximum contaminated levels. This is all America numbers you're looking at. And so every city in America should look like that right there. They should have picked up all the topsoil and Canada in both countries. They should have knocked down every tree in both countries because they aggregate radiation. So they got 80 years of radioactive fallout from all the nuclear wars. You call it nuclear testing. Same bomb, same radioactive fallout. I mean, the Soviet Union's bomb, biggest bomb, was equal to 3,800 Nagasaki's going off at one time. If that's not a nuclear war, what actually is, I wonder? And we're talking high-level radiation, distributed worldwide on a just terrifying scale. Nuclear policy experts striking that the radioactive iodine-131 in California rainwater is so far above the permitted in drinking water. It's not striking, it's terrifying. New York Times contributor confirms California rainwater was 181 times above drinking water standards for radioactive iodine-131. There is no safe level of that number, so that stuff, by the way. So anybody who drank water and didn't avoid breathing air in that couple-of-month period got serious doses. Again, think about in Japan in the first year, there was 865,000 cancers. Do you know what that really means? Now, not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed on top of that. What it means is, when they seen that number, they said we got to ship all the food out of the country. They didn't say we got to stop growing food. No. It's 1,000,000,000% opposite of that. It's unbelievable that we've seen that. A year after Fukushima, the worst numbers since World War II. Well, I mean, what are you talking about? The worst numbers since World War II? How did World War II create 865,000 cancers in 1 year? Somebody want to explain that to me? And it's not just cancer. They should have been looking for heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, congenital malformations, spikes in all kinds of Alzheimer's and dementia and autism, diabetes and Down syndrome. Contaminated Tokyo tap water is unfit for babies. That means you're supposed to abandon Tokyo. And it's not, if it's bad for babies, it's bad for everybody and every pet. Just getting a shower or getting in a hot tub is brutal numbers. Washing your clothes in it, washing your food, cooking your food, drinking it all day long. So should this industry be ashamed of themselves what they got done to us? Because they knew this was the only outcome that could come from this. They all knew this. Officials admit deadly Fukushima meltdown cover-up. I was so bad we poisoned everybody on the planet, killed all the whales and birds and insects. It's all good. We're the nuclear industry. We can do shit like that. It's not illegal to poison us either with radiation. Congress doesn't have the authority to make it illegal. Neither does the parliaments in Canada, for instance, or Britain. Neither does the Diet in Japan have the authority to make it illegal to poison you with anthropogenic man-made radiation. Only the nuclear regulatory agency has those privileges, and they're not going to exercise them. Quite the opposite. But the Congress, the parliaments, and the Diets all have the authority to make 3,000 chemicals illegal to poison you in your food or anywhere else with, but they don't have the authority to make it illegal to poison you with radiation. That's pretty convenient. There's a word for that. There's an acronym. There's a folklore about that particular position. What is it called? Where you allegedly you don't know, so you're not guilty when you're in a position like that. There's a name for it. Maybe I'll remember it. Maybe I won't. I'll try in a second. So, my detractors should go down to Japan and write on these 30 million one-ton bags. On live stream it up to YouTube. YouTube's free. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. The Dana is wrong. There is no radioactive fallout. We're in so much trouble. I was out today and again, no starlings, no finches, no robins, no little tiny birds whatsoever. And every time I do this now, it scares the shit out of me. And the crazy stuff is when you talk to people and you ask them when was the last time they've seen a flock of migratory birds, they literally don't know what to say to you. They're literally like, what? Wait, what? Let's yell at Trump. Oh, yeah, okay. I got lots of stuff. You want to hear a joke? I'll tell you one right now about Trump. Like to come back to life, right? But when you ask them a question like, when was the last time you seen a flock of birds flying over? They'll be like, their brain goes, oh, sugar, give me sugar. Japan's earthquake, new fire at Fukushima nuclear plant. Why don't people when posed with a question like that have an intelligent response of some type? Is a question that I would love to have an answer to, because I've been doing this for years. And if you say Fukushima, they're going to have a seizure right in front of you, so I'm afraid to say it anymore. They'd like to swallow their tongue. They'd be like, and you got to put them in one of those suits and send them into Fukushima is what we got to do. There's not a nuclear scientist on the entire planet that looked at these buildings. This is Medusa, Reactor 3, well it was, and Reactor 4, well it was. There's not a nuclear scientist on this entire planet that said the reactors were still in the buildings or the fuel pools were still in the buildings. And not one of them have ever come out and told you that. It was impossible to be an academic and know what these Mark IV reactors are not like, and know, and by deduction, they know the fuel pool and reactor cores are gone. And nobody's ever told us. I think that's one of the most terrifying things imaginable for all the academics worldwide to work together to conceal that from the population that is pretty incompetent when it comes to nuclear, right? And just because they hoodwinked everybody don't make it okay. At all. If it was legal to hold them accountable, say we had all the nuclear scientists on the planet, there's no way they did. Every single one of them didn't know this, and we had a world consensus that we're going to sentence them all to death, and we want them to die a tough way. We're going to split their heads open with a big axe. And so they want to volunteer. And if they asked me, I would say, well, I don't want to do it because it's a pretty messy job. Somebody needs to do it, but I'll do it. and I won't shed a tear the entire time. Yeah, it's going to take me a couple of lifetimes. I absolutely have nothing but contempt for the nuclear academics on this planet. I have the utmost contempt. So will everybody else at some point. Just wicked people. It's inexcusable, right? When you understand what really happened here and how they got away with it to this far, there's not really, it's so offensive that outrageous, monstrous, nefarious doesn't do it justice. These are terrorists. That's what a nuclear academic is. It's a terrorist. And on day 5, there was a nuclear scientist on the entire planet, a nuclear professor, a nuclear academic, nuclear government agencies that didn't see that picture. And they remain silent to today to protect their idiot idol, the nuclear. And its entire legacy is predicated upon deception, deceit, genocide, omnicides, hideous contamination that never goes away. And I know what you're saying, Dana. You're obsessed. It's true. I can't deny it no more. I want them. I want to get them. I want to hold them accountable. And that sounds crazy, but that's my fantasy, is to hold them accountable. I work really hard on my fantasy to hold them accountable. Bash my head into the walls all day like a ping pong game. We've attacked them from every direction conceivable. There's pretty well nothing we haven't looked at, and they've managed to screw everything up for everybody and every species on the planet. The International Atomic Energy Agency, this story, go back to this one. Japan's earthquake, this is the 16th of March 2011. So on the 16th, the reactors looked like this. Oh, and that. The International Atomic Energy Agency, aka United Nations, lacks data on the temperatures of the spent fuel of reactor 1, 3, and 4 at Fukushima. Well, there's 3 and there's 4. Now, the minute you've seen those pictures, there's not a single person in the International Atomic Energy Agency that suggested the fuel pools were intact, which is around 8 reactor cores. Each reactor core is equal to about 100 Chernobyls because it's pure uranium, pure plutonium. And the Medusa was the mixed oxide, plutonium mixed oxide fuel. Just that reactor alone, not counting the 8 reactor cores and the fuel pools at the top of the buildings that are gone, just that single reactor core was an event. Because it was fuel that had already gone through a chain reaction, was reclaimed through the most despicable way possible, and the releases from the reclamation, from reclaiming the radiation or the particles from the used fuel, the releases are just unbelievable. When you look at the legacy of this reprocessing, it's pretty easy to have a lot of contempt for Britain and France. You know, the France has had a couple of reprocessing facilities. The La Hague itself, which is out on a peninsula in the Atlantic Ocean, has 500 security guards. 500 security guards. Stop you from taking pictures or getting close to it with a Geiger counter. That's their job. And you might say, no, that's crazy, Dana. Oh, no. I could never catch up to the crazies, the nuclear industry. It had been claimed the plant was storing more uranium than it was designed to hold. The fuel pools were stuffed. And they're like that worldwide. They don't have a repository anywhere. These villains. It's frightening, right? They have 150,000 sites like that, so there's 149,000 pictures like this missing. And that's where I come in. Ta-da! Don't ask me that one. Ta-da! Oh, I don't know, some of these pictures, I know what's going on there. That was me experimenting. So this was radiation robots. Right, all those robots, their job was to go around collecting radiation. They're single use, right? Because once they collect the radiation, they're so radioactive, you have to throw the robot in a nuclear repository for 1 million years. And there's the future. We'll all be gone. Only thing left will be robots, and the robots will still be cleaning up the radiation. That's what these pictures were about. And these pictures. Nuclear winter is forever, but it's not something you can see. It's invisible. You can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or perceive it. And that's what these pictures were about. The future of nuclear cleanup. Nobody's left, and the robots we created are going to try to deal with it for thousands of years. And hopefully a meteorite strikes our planet with some kind of cells or creatures that have replicating cells, and life can start again. Highly radioactive glass rained on Tokyo at 500 trillion atoms per kilogram. You do not want to eat food from Japan. You don't want to feed that even to your enemy. This changes the understanding of the disaster, extremely important. Our ideas of the health implications should change. Oh, you have no idea how much it should change. And this graph kind of gives you this concept of iodine mimics natural iodine. Ends up in your thyroid, pituitary, your adrenaline glands, and everywhere else. And then once it's in your thyroid gland, now you have radioactive hormones. The strontium mimics calcium. So once it gets into your bones, it mutates your stem cells, or the children, or the insects, or the birds, or the mammals, or the animals, and it wrecks them by mutating them stem cells. And if you got one, you're going to have the others. You're going to have radioactive hormones all day, every day, in developing species and humans, and you're going to have radioactive stem cells in developing species and kids, right? And cesium-137 mimics potassium, so it likes to wreck your organs, your liver, your kidney, your spleen, blah, blah, blah. 150,000 sites with 30 million one-ton bags. And because everybody's so friggin' complacent, they're now cutting the bags open, dumping it in a nuclear wasteland, in an abandoned community, and growing food in it with the intentions of selling it to prove that the nuclear industry has nothing to fear. Ha ha! It's so insane. The story's so insane. I'm heartbroken that I'm still the only person out there that's dedicated to this. It's heartbreaking. It turns my guts. And it's overwhelming, right? Because you got no choice but to dedicate your life to the story, and to the harm, and to the species, and to this planet. You got no choice but to dedicate every waking moment to this. Somebody has to. Millions of people should be doing it, right? Japan in a frantic bid to cool the reactors. Ha! A nuclear scientist in Qatar told Al Jazeera that the Japanese authorities are thinking of bringing in retired workers to the plant because they have a short lifetime left. And we got the stories of send us people who don't mind dying, and other stories of 60 and older should be prepared to die at Fukushima, and other stories of the Tokyo government was considering a draft to send people to Fukushima. Well, you gotta go to Fukushima and work. Yeah, no, it's a shitty card, but somebody, you gotta take one for the country. Patriotic. Take one for the nuclear industry is more like it. What a worthless industry, isn't it? What a stupid industry this turned out to be. And they knew this back in the 50s and 60s. Over the years, there are quite a few people that warned us. But what I talk about is, in the last number of years, the fact that nobody come out and told you the fuel pools were gone. There was a couple originally. But you don't have anybody else with credentials, because nobody's going to listen to somebody unless they got an idiot degree in nuclear, which makes them, by proxy, a monster, because anyone who stayed there long enough to get to the degree has to be a monster. They can deny it all they want. You got to be a monster to stay in that industry. We got way too many monsters. They're going to bring in retired workers to the plant because they have a short lifetime left. So what are they trying to say? That everybody's going to get severely damaged, yeah? So are the people that are picking up the 1-ton bags, by the way, or eating the rice, or not paying attention. Tuesday news on the disaster in Japan, March the 15th, 2011. March the 15th, 2011. To show you this picture, because that was one of the tricks they done originally, was show you everything with the tsunami instead of the nuclear meltdowns. The BBC reported that 500 bone marrow transplant centres across Europe are being asked to be on standby to treat the Japanese radiation victims if the need arises. So they decided to pretend it didn't happen. But yet, their instant reactions were quite telling, aren't they? I mean, that is one of the craziest headlines you'll ever see. It's going to be, I would say, let me get out of the way in case you want to take a screen capture. I would say that is the craziest headline imaginable. This was Al Jazeera. And if you look up the story, you'll figure out what date it was, because I screwed up. 500 bone marrow transplant centres across Europe are being asked to be on standby. So this must have been the first week or something, or the first couple of days, to treat the Japanese radiation victims if the need arises. So clearly this had to be the first couple of days. There's Associated Press interactive graphic and video here that explains in some detail what is happening at the... And they were calling it cripple back then. On Tuesday, crews continued to work to bring electricity back to the facility and managed to turn the lights on in the control room. So this is it happened on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So this is day 5. On Tuesday, crews continued to bring electricity to the facility. It's simply not true. The whole coastline for about 1,200 miles looked like that. There was a few telephone poles left standing, but I can guarantee you there was no electricity. Where are you going to plug in? There was zilch possibility on the 5th day, when reactor 3 was exploding, by the way, that they turned on the lights in the control room of Unit 4. It's zero. There's Unit 4 over there, by the way. Calling them monsters doesn't work, does it? It's unforgivable. It's inexcusable. And clearly a nuclear scientist should be best described as a mutant. Something that should have been put in a bucket at birth. Get your pen out. Dana is wrong. Hang on. Oh my goodness. Dana is wrong. Yeah. See, Durnford, you're wrong, Durnford. Dana is wrong. I like to see them do that 30 million times. Radiation is like a banana. I get a little dizzy. I get dizzy every time I'm in front of the pictures. Imagine what it's like if you were there. The Japan quake caused 400 kilometer seismic slip. The land. So this was the tectonic plates, and they're doing this all year long. They do this all year long for millions of years. This is what they do. And the only way that they can create such a large, long tsunami is when a large section of the coastline lets go. And the displacement causes the water to come flying in at around 600 miles per hour. And when it starts to get to shallow water, it has so much energy it rises up, right? And in some places, when it inland 10 kilometers, I'm sure all of you have seen the videos at some point. And 200 kilometers wide due to a sudden slip at the spot where the Pacific tectonic plate slides underneath, slash or over. One goes over, one goes under. Dana is wrong. Radiation good. Dana bad. See, Dana, nothing happened to me. Playing past the parcel with Fukushima, 30 million one-ton bags of radiation. See, Dana? It's not bad at all. It's pretty good, Dana. You know, after Chernobyl, they closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. Hundreds are still closed today because they're CC-137, which is real, don't get me wrong. And it pulses energy 600 feet every second. But the farms are so contaminated, closed 9,400 farms. And that means they were supposed to evacuate Ireland, Scotland, and Great Britain, right? Because the radiation doesn't fly around. Where's the farm? Where's the farm? Where's the farm? Where's the farm? Hey, everybody over here. It doesn't work that way. At all. And you wonder why I get a little bit upset. Sometimes I kind of snap. Sometimes I kind of freak out sometimes. Okay, a lot. I do it a lot, I know. It's because this stuff bothers me. I apologize to the nuclear industry for letting it bother me. It didn't feel good tonight. The best way to get cancer is eat food from Japan. That's it. That's the takeaway. Have a nice night. Because all of this is in farmland. And they move to somewhere else and continue to grow food. Like when they're growing it, when they're filling up these bags, they're still growing food. Before they picked up the bags, they were still growing food. This is clearly an agenda to contaminate everybody, make everybody sick. It's as clear as anything. It's as clear. There's nothing clearer. And they're a shithead. It's a shithead industry, isn't it? Your Geiger counters might find some radiation, but they're not going to be able to tell you how much is there. And at best, it's going to find gamma. What about the alphas, the neutrons, the betas, the X-rays? And you better worry about that. So here, I'm up against, and you are too, up against people like this. Young Jong-il is a professor at the Department of Nuclear Quantum Engineering in South Korea at the Major Cast Institute. Very prestigious place. It's a very prestigious job. He's making truckloads of money. Truckloads. He doesn't need to be evil. Hey, why not, right? How do you think he got the job? Why do you think they picked him for the job? Because they knew that when they said, hey, it's time to step up for the nuclear industry, like, yeah, what would you want me to do? I'll do it. You can trust me. I'm a professor. They must laugh their arse off every time she says that word. He said the nuclear meltdowns were equivalent to throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. Think about that kind of contempt. He must have laughed himself silly when he was writing it. And that the 1,000 tanks, which at best got fresh water into them, got no radioactive water into them, because how can you build more tanks alongside of these tanks if you fill them up with actual radiation? You can't. The tanks are not thick enough to shield you just from the fallout, let alone from actual inventories. He said each year to be released, the equivalent of releasing 0.062 grams per year. 0.062 grams. This is a real picture. The bags in the background are a minimum of 100 atoms per kilogram. 100,000 atoms per kilogram of just cesium. What a piece of shit industry, man. But to suggest that a nuclear meltdown is the equivalent of throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. Here's and it shouldn't surprise us, because there's lots of these crazies out there in the nuclear industry, very well positioned crazies on top of that. The Yomiuri editor, major media in Japan, said not eating your vegetables is equal to 100,000 to 200,000 microsieverts. Unfounded radiation fears seem to be continuing to spread. Calmly review radiation risk based on scientific evidence editorial. It's a major Japanese media. In December 4, 2011, that's so much cancer. You're talking about 100 to 200 millisieverts. See, measuring it in microsieverts and millisieverts is not very helpful at all. So you've got to break it down to microsieverts. There's 1,000 microsieverts in every milliesievert. This is 100,000 microsieverts and 100,000 to 200,000 microsieverts. And each microsievert is, think of it as 750 physical atoms. Let's say cesium-137, for instance. Everything else is going to be there too. It's not just going to be cesium, by the way. But this is how they're doing it. And so if there was fuel and you were walking past the fuel, that's how you get millisieverts and microsieverts. If it's in your body, it's physical atoms. And each atom is pulsing energy almost at the speed of light. Your body, each one is capable of producing a tumor in your body. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life. With white blood cells, eventually builds a tumor around it. So it's equivalent to 750,000, I don't know, 7.5 million or 15 million atoms in your body. This is crazy talk, right? To conflate these together. I like to see him go down and marking all of these bags that Fukushima is like vegetables. Not eating your veggies are equal to getting a huge dose. Like, where did he come up with that? How does that actually work? Did Jeffrey Dahmer stick a drill in his head when he was young or something? How does this work? Now, these are very well-positioned people. They're doing incredible jobs. They're making an absurd amount of money to be a monster. And we're seeing it was every newspaper on the planet, same thing. Every newspaper. Even the small ones. You'll find these monsters. Ready to come out and destroy your ability to have a conversation with your loved ones so that you can avoid certain things. At least do that much. They have scuttled everybody's ability to have a future on top of that. New documents show iodine-131 contamination was 350% of the highest amount reported, 54 100,000 atoms per kilogram in spinach 100 kilometers from Fukushima. So again, for every iodine-131, there's 10 times more iodine-132 produced, and there's 30 times more iodine-133 produced, and there's 31 times more iodine-129 produced, and the iodine-132 and the iodine-133 are 9 times more effective at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands of the insects and your children and everybody else than the incredible, unbelievably effective iodine-131 is. And because you're talking about such a prodigious amount in these different daughters, you're guaranteed to saturate the thyroid glands and the bones, the skeleton. And so anything developing, like insects would do multiple generations each year, and birds and animals and mammals and everything else, this is the best way to sterilize them all, see? Because we produce every so often, but insects, they produce. That's what they live to do, right? They're part of that food chain. They need to produce. And same, like a lot of, same thing with codfish, for instance. We'll have, say, 700,000 eggs, 700,000 small fries. And they'll feed a huge amount to the population. Maybe only 3 or 4 of them will actually make it into an adult cod. But the other 700,000 will feed the food chain. And originally, they're considered phytoplankton in their smallest connotations, same as the sperm from starfish and mussels and clams and oysters and everything else. They become part of the phytoplankton. They're actually considered phytoplankton in some of their larvae stages, which is the most important thing on the planet, and this is what the whales are dependent upon, and a lot of bird species, like the Cassini auklets and storm petrels, and they're very dependent. Now they're showing up all over the world, emaciated. Same as the common murres and turs, where they show up in the millions emaciated. 2 different spectrums of the food chain showing up at the same time, symmetrically around the world, emaciated. Farmer's field. Anything left open, farmers are going to be instructed to go out and farm. Oh, no, everything's in the bag. You've seen the pictures of them farming right alongside of 1-ton bags for radiation. Tell me I'm wrong. Radiation fallout poses growing threat. July 25th, 2011. 2,600 cattle contaminated. More vegetables at unsafe levels. No centralized system. Only volunteer test. No centralized system. Think about that statement now. Japan's like, oh, the food's great, Dana, but there's no centralized systems, only volunteer tests. And we done a story there yesterday or the day before where the farmers were given Geiger counters and told if it's over 500 atoms a kilogram, you can't sell it. Wink. Just mix it with something not as radioactive. Farmers, who if they had even a grain of common sense wouldn't be there in the first place, let alone checking things with a Geiger counter. But horror that never stops giving, eh? Hey, just pretty cheap rent there too. Well, it's a nuclear wasteland, yeah, but Dana, the rent's only half the price of a normal place. I get a great big apartment all to myself. Free electricity. Free healthcare. Yeah, I gotta go to the universities and let them pin me full of holes once in a while, but that's free rent, Dana. The only farmer left in Fukushima town ships broccoli and lettuce to the supermarket. Oh, they're tasty and got a rich flavor, said the monster. It's the best way to describe a farmer in Japan is a monster. And stupid, too. It's not like they're going to escape it and their loved ones. Here's one of the worst jobs you can get. And you put a paper mask over your face. This stuff is 6,000 times smaller than the hole in the mask. It does zero to stop it. It does zero. Well-disciplined idiots. Residents feel like guinea pigs in radiation research. Survey leader, I'm not saying they should be used as guinea pigs, but, it's official. People who stayed in Fukushima are guinea pigs. When you got to drive past 1 million one-ton bags to get to work every day, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Anybody that made you do it is a criminal. Prime Minister Khan, evacuation after Fukushima could have reached 50 million people. So what they decided to do was say that Fukushima didn't melt down. So no need to evacuate. Everything is great. Ha ha ha. Here's reactor 3 and 4. Let's have a look at it. Well, where's the buildings? They're gone. That's the stumps of them. Dana, where's the buildings? Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Nuclear being evil and getting away with it for 80 years was not an accident. I mean, these people got incredible education. They're very smart people. You can talk to them. They seem like a normal, everyday person. Because they know it's very difficult to trace back their evil, wicked, hideous, monstrous legacies. They couldn't care less about themselves or you or anybody else. That's how come they got the job in the first place. Imagine suggesting there's fuel pools and reactor cores at the top of these two buildings. Because they're not suggesting it. They're claiming they got the fuel out of the pools at the top of these buildings that don't even exist. I know it sounds incredible. So at the top of the buildings, there's two of them, right? At each reactor, there are fuel pools. And because there's no repository anywhere on the planet, this is where nuclear plants keep their fuel in fuel pools. And now when you put the fuel in the pool, it's still splitting atoms for the next 1,000,000 years. And so it boils off water. That water is full of atoms, anthropogenic man-made atoms. That when it gets in your loved ones' bodies, you're going to get sick, incredible sicknesses and diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. It wrecks your immune system. So one of its first priorities is going to wreck your immune system. It's going to saturate it with white blood cells, and you have essentially no immune system. Half the people in Japan were close to being evacuated after the start of Fukushima crisis. Well, when you look at all of these bags, these are real pictures, they got 150,000 sites like that, they should have evacuated. Tokyo included. Half of Japan at least. Fukushima officials, this is the guy in charge of the victims of Fukushima. Children playing on a playground with fake Geiger counters. There's so many of these pictures, it's ridiculous. The Geiger counters are all in unisieverts, not physical atoms, which is what they should be. If you're going to these places, you don't set your Geiger counter at microsieverts or millisieverts. You set it at physical atoms if you want to know what's really going on. The microsievers, millisievers is for the average person. They got that there to confuse you, manipulate you, and deceive you, and coerce you into being capable of being honest with yourselves and calling it like it is, physical atoms. Oh, if I had a nickel for every physical atom that I ingested, I'd be a rich man. A public official charged with helping victims of the Japanese nuclear disaster who launched a foul-mouthed Twitter triad faced calls to quit Thursday. Yeah, good luck on that. In a posting on a microblogging site, he said citizen groups demanding measures to protect people against radiation were lefty shits. He said, I can't help but only feel pity for their lack of intelligence. and he eventually deleted the tweet. This is the same guy who talked about learning from the Nazis and previously said to let the elderly people hurry up and die. And this is the little shacks they put them in, who evacuated their wonderful homes and communities. And the vending machines sing, "Don't give up on Fukushima, baby." And people go in, they don't know any better. They're completely complacent. They believe in the system. And that's the quickest way to get your life destroyed, is believe in the system. Trust anything that these monsters, these parasites say. And this is the same guy, let the elderly people hurry up and die. He loves you so much. 150,000 sites like this, and people are there, no, there's no radiation, Dana. Fear-mongering. In order to create 150,000 sites and 3% of the land in a single prefecture, the food was banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries for a decade. By the way, local official, they found plutonium in every sample. Remember the studies I showed you earlier about plutonium? Yummy. Reactors are not repaired at all. November 16, 2012. With one more quake, Japan will cease to exist. Because what they were talking about was, if you had an earthquake, then these buildings would collapse and there'd be an inferno. Helen Keller was another one, the slime bag. Resulting destruction will take half the planet with it. And it does that through radioactive fallout. And they got some of these models, and I'll pop one up for you. This is the plutonium-239 dispersal, by the way. Remember, they found plutonium in every sample. Remember that story a few moments ago? Guess what? It covered the whole planet. That model is 20 days. So that's far from the full picture. And there's a lot of it. Fukushima to ban rice grown in Onami. The government on Thursday banned shipments of rice harvested in Onami district in the city of Fukushima, which is almost 300,000 people, where every house is entitled to be decontaminated. Imagine being so evil you leave people there. Oh no, don't worry, you're entitled to be decontaminated. We just got to find enough homeless people to do it for you. Well, yeah, we'd like to get a university. They're not going to come here, though. It's a nuclear wasteland, stupid. After one farm's product registered levels of radioactive cesium above the provisional limits. And their limits, what year was this? This was 2011. Oh, there you go. The Fukushima prefectural government said Wednesday the cesium, because that's the game they played against you where they only talk about cesium, was 630 atoms per kilogram. And the provincial limits is 500 atoms per kilogram. They dropped it down to 100 atoms per kilogram the next year because they had 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. Like, okay, whoa. Woo! And cancer is just one of the many illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses. And I don't know how any people come back to these shows. I really don't. I can't comprehend that, tell you the truth. It's such a terrible story, right? I'd be happy if I got 2 or 3 viewers on the show because it's such a horrible story. I've been doing it for so long. I'm not going to say I'm immune to it, because I'm definitely not, to this story. But there's no one out there, if I quit, there's no one out there to fill in the enormous gap, the worldwide gap. Which means I don't have a right to stop. I'd be just as bad at him if I gave it up. And it's definitely the toughest, longest road I've ever seen. And it's just brutal every single day for me. So the officials said the prefecture had examined earlier samples of rice from the area and didn't find cesium above 500 atoms threshold. And the prefectural government on Wednesday requested farmers in the district to refrain from shipping their radioactive food. Imagine, farmers in a nuclear wasteland were still growing food. It's just, I can't comprehend it, that this kind of hate they have for us. Like, it's so clear that when this happened, I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. They had 150,000 sites. And Fukushima was surrounded by one-ton bags. It was everywhere. You went there in the first 5 years and tried to count them. You couldn't do it. Grown food in a nuclear wasteland. And then shipping it all over the world on purpose to harm you, on purpose to make you sick, on purpose to destroy your health and your children's health, on purpose, doing it on purpose. It's what we call a shithead industry. You really got to be a shithead to participate in this. After passing the initial test, a total of 1 ton of rice from 86 farms among the 154 in Onami district had already been shipped to local rice sellers, according to the prefecture. 1 ton of rice in 86 farms, really? You really think it was that small of an amount? Anybody really believe that? To prevent the tainted, imagine using the word in lethal food and calling it tainted, from making it to the store shelves. The government will continue inspections as we've been doing before. An official said the agricultural ministry will consider launching more efficient food inspections next year. You'll be too sick to complain next year, so that's a good time, I guess, to do it. The Prime Minister will continue to keep eating rice harvested in Fukushima Prefecture at his official residence, they said. Oh, yeah, no, the Prime Minister eats it all the time. You can't even move in his kitchen. You got rice stacked everywhere, Dana. He loves it. It's so tasty and delicious. And yeah, he's got a couple of 100 tumors growing out of him, but it's good rice, Dana. It tastes good. They should have been nuked right away. Should have nuked that part of the country so they couldn't grow food there, right? They still should do it because they're still growing food there. I don't want to nuke them, but you want to go and dig up that part of the country and put it in a nuclear waste site for 1 billion years. Noda wrote in his official blog post last month he began eating rice from Fukushima on October the 21st, a few days after visiting Fukushima Prefecture, and promised the people there he would switch to Fukushima rice at the Prime Minister's official residence. That is such an evil statement. We have that luxury of hindsight. It's such a... You have to be a absurdly worthless human to do what he done. It shouldn't be illegal. Never mind. I want to help, even though it may do little, to wipe away the harmful rumors about Fukushima agricultural products caused by the nuclear disaster, the blog entry says. To wipe away harmful rumors. Well, they haven't even started picking up the 30 million one-ton bags yet. Harmful rumors. Oh, it's a harmful rumor. Such an idiot industry, isn't it? It's such a stupid industry, nuclear is. And they just wreck it for everybody and everything on the planet. That's the crazy stuff about it. And I think she got her phone or something and she's taking pictures proving the rice is safe. And this is how they're checking the rice, the 50-pound bags in a nuclear wasteland. Everything is safe. And I can't remember, it was like 50 million of these bags every year. 50 million 50-pound bags a year that they check to prove it's safe, right? And none of these people have a degree in radiation. You couldn't drag them there. If you give them $100 million, you still couldn't get them to go there. Almost half of the Japanese women tested showed radioactive iodine 131 in breast milk. This is April 21st, 2011. Radiation? What radiation? I don't see it. There's no radiation fallout, Dana. Stop lying, Dana. Oh, my goodness. Let me try the poll again. Should stupid Japan be ashamed of themselves for poisoning everyone on Earth with radioactive food? Oh, I got 22 views, 22 likes. I got 23 votes. I'm not censored at all, Dana. So, there's a lot of stuff you can't put on YouTube, right? So there's BitChute. There's one good site. And there's a lot of scumbags there. You can't get away from it, right? And so I've been using BitChute for the last week heavily in my spare time, looking for videos on Iran, Israel, etc. And my videos I can't get the videos to stream the last couple of days. I was like, oh, who knows what's going on there. So today I used a virtual private network and all the videos streamed perfect. And when I signed out of that, went back to my regular IP, the videos don't stream. Coincidence, I guess. The disgusting Japan Times says, okay for babies to drink radioactive milk because adults have natural potassium 40 in the body. These are the craziest, the most shameful statements conceivable. You don't need to feel stressed because you have potassium in your body, so don't worry about it. And these people, because you get the death penalty is legal in Japan, they should get the death penalty for doing that. But it does show you the callousness, the hatefulness of the nuclear industry, the contempt that they have for you, that they're so sure that you can't work it out that they put this headline up there. Because you have natural potassium in your body, it's okay for the kids to drink the radioactive milk. It's like if someone told me that, I wouldn't believe it. But, you know, I've read the story that many times over the years. So, of course, the children are the most vulnerable because they're developing. Their thyroid glands are very important because of the hormones. Radioactive hormones at their ages is a disaster. And they put the Geiger counters in the playgrounds. There's 3,000 in Fukushima City alone. Fake Geiger counters in unisieverts. Microsieverts. I do that a lot. I apologize for that. I know I've done that a lot over the years too. When I see the U, I'll go unisievert. Because my brain is just, it's everywhere else, right? I apologize. Well, the farmers got a good crop growing, though. In the old rice paddies. This is the craziest pictures conceivable. So there's only about 1,000 of these pictures. So where's the other 149,000 pictures? There's got to be more than one picture of each site. They have to repackage the bags every 3 years, they claim. Good luck on that. Because the bags are very fragile. They're not meant to last only a couple of years, let alone 3. The World Health Organization accused of underestimating the disaster's impact on the human health. Cover up the true radiation levels Fukushima residents were exposed to. Well, the World Health Organization is not your friend. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories of them cutting your throat with radiation. It's just, how are they able to get away with it? And I mean, that's an organization dedicated to getting away with it, see? To covering up these crimes against humanity and the 8 million species. There were orders not to get within 230 miles of Fukushima for the U.S. officials gave it to the military. Potassium iodine given to all defense personnel families within 200 miles of the plant. And there's over 1,100 kinds of radioactive material. So the bags are not just full of cesium-137. There's over 1,100 isotopes. Can't have one without all the other. Fukushima will start burning radioactive dirty bombs. 100,000 atoms per kilogram to be incinerated. The ash is so radioactive they can't get rid of it on top of it. And there's 1 billion pounds of radioactive debris in the exclusion zone. 1 billion dirty bombs. Because when you burn it, you just liberate the radiation, the isotopes, back into the ecosystem. So that's what they use microsieverts and millisievers, is to draw you away from the physical. What's causing the microsieverts or millisievers is the isotopes. And so the isotopes is what you're worried about, the counts per minute. You got a Geiger counter, counts per minute is your friend. Well, you know, it's still scary shit. But it gives you some. Now you got to multiply by 600 to get the number of all the other isotopes. So if your Geiger counter is 1 count per minute, it means you've got 600 counts per minute. There's 300 times more radiation released into the atmosphere from burning radioactive debris than claimed by the government. 2012. Does this sound like a place where you want to grow food or you want to buy food from? The best way to get cancer is eat food from Japan after Fukushima's nuclear meltdowns. How about this doozy? Our digital watches stopped working when offshore Fukushima after 3/11. We were laughing at first, and then... And these are real pictures of the USS Ronald Reagan. And we got testimony from the victims, right, the military. There's 5,500 people on the USS Ronald Reagan. The bathrooms were all plugged because everybody had diarrhea. People were defecating out in the hallways. There was 12 helicopters. When they came back, they had to change the engines on them because they were so radioactive. And that the sailors, they've actually put the USS Ronald Reagan up on dry dock and grind it down the surface of everything to try to lower the doses on that aircraft carrier. And they have people out there scrubbing the deck with soap and water in order to make them feel good. Is the most insane thing. During the radioactive fallout is the most insane, stupidest thing conceivable. The biggest betrayal on this planet and its entire legacy is the nuclear industry. The most lethal industry. Seafood, by the way, shellfish are filter feeders. And so they bioaccumulate radiation 125,000 times more than fish in that. Really, truly is cancer in a bowl. Fukushima farmers hope that the ducks will eat up the radiation. Dave Sweeney, Australia. I put out tons of headlines. You'll never see mine. They only regurgitate the propaganda, right? Ooh. La 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 la. Yeah, it's a little washed out, isn't it, the color? Let me lighten that up. That's the wrong color, but it's not the wrong color. It's just it's washed out. I have too much light going on. I don't have a light meter. I know that's hard to believe with me, but I actually don't have a light meter. I need to get a light meter so I can judge the light, because I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got 11 lights running right now. I turned a couple off. My lights got some of my lights got 600 LEDs, for instance. And there's another one down below the desk, so it can shine up in the spots right there. Yeah, so like the nuclear industry can go down there and mark on all the bags that radiation is great, and when they're finished, I'll quit. Kyoto News uses terms like hot zones to describe Miyagi, Iwate, Tochigi prefectures, not just Fukushima. Don't be a chicken, the mayor tells the parents who are concerned their children are eating the radioactive lunches. This is in the nuclear meltdown, by the way, areas. And so anything that's not got a bag on it, the farmers are growing food. Every organism, Tokyo professor, every organism in Fukushima prefecture is contaminated with radiation. Almost 1.4 million atoms per kilogram in the worm's feces, 60 kilometers from the nuclear meltdown. So would you want to eat food? Look at this. Yeah, Dana, the farmers picked up the radiation, put it in 1-ton bags, Dana. Safe. I've heard it all over the years. I like to have the first couple of years when the apologists were thick as thieves in the comment sections. We eventually got rid of them. We just gave up on it, started blocking them. They will come in here, they'll scream bananas and potato chips and Wagner sunshine, and then but they'll read the comments, and they'll come in and argue with you the whole show, nonstop. And these people should be arrested and put in jail for the rest of their lives. These are out there committing crimes that are unspeakable constantly. Japanese mayor says the students are gaining knowledge by eating radioactive lunches in your school lunch. Don't think in Canada, United States, the nuclear scientists are not doing the same thing. Or anywhere else on this planet. This is the homeless and the destitute cleaning up radiation. This is their version of cleaning up. They're going around grinding off cement and saying that's decontamination. It's truly the most bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre to suggest that that has any way to mitigate the radiation and that it would be safe after to go into these communities. It's so bizarre, I can't understand why the world is not upset. I can't comprehend it. TEPCO finds the most polluted fish since Fukushima 2013. 750,000 atoms per kilogram. Jeez. And we know they're only talking about cesium. That was a greenling. These are absurd numbers. You eat that fish, and there's no way you don't get sick and die eventually from it. Cleaning up the peach orchards, peach tree orchards. And then they just sell the peaches. And then they'll jack the price of the peaches up, like $100 each. You'll see them, right? I've covered the stories over the years. Would you eat food from there? This is what they call cleaning up radiation. Look. This is what they call cleaning up a nuclear wasteland. It's the strangest thing I've ever heard tell of, that they would even attempt to fake it, but to actually go out and do it, You got to give them credit. They're extra evil. Right? They make serial killers look like little children. They really don't have any redeeming qualities, this industry. Not one. Not half of one, not a quarter of one, not a. All of eastern Japan evacuated should the Fukushima plant was evacuated. All of eastern Japan evacuated if they couldn't get enough homeless people to work there. Is any of this worth fighting for tonight? Is all the stories I showed you tonight evidence that we need to fight against these, I call them people, I apologize for that, these creatures, these serial killers, these monsters that don't have any, we don't have any other crimes we can actually compare them to. Their crimes are so unique. It's an omnicide. It's the extermination of all species. That's the final outcome with these shit for brains. Worker confirms TEPCO is taking weekends off. TEPCO don't go to Fukushima during that period. It's the homeless, the destitute, the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language. And like lots of them acknowledged that earlier in the days, right? Taking weekends off, multiple nuclear meltdowns. They're not taking weekends off. They have steam coming out of the ground so radioactive, it's lethal doses. They have to run away and leave the site until that calms down. You can never go back to the site, but they do. The homeless and the destitute do. Workers are fired once they have heat stroke / radiation sickness. Weekends off at Fukushima. Now, one plant worker could be seen. Operational equipment laid idle at cold air quietness 2012. And every time I see pictures like this with people with paper suits on, it's strictly for the cameras, right? To make it look like they're doing something, like they're winning or something. It's meant to give you false hope or false confidence. And we badgered TEPCO, I can't remember what year it was, 2019 maybe? Really so much, they came out with a story from the Japanese media saying they burn 7,000 paper suits every day. And the incinerators, they got incinerators. They built a new one there too. At a nuclear meltdown. If this industry is not under control, then everything is I'm in the twilight zone, I guess. This is so far out of touch with any kind of morsel of reality. It's simply, how do we have a future on this planet with these whack jobs on it? Growing concern over workers' shortages. Oh, they're running out of nuclear scientists, are they, Dana? No, they're running out of the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants that don't speak the language. The worst people you would put in this position to do this job. It's so bizarre. Tokyo vice governor suggested a Fukushima draft. All of Japan must face it. And sale of foreign Geiger counters was banned. Right? And only those degenerate... what the hell were their names? Safecast. A bunch of Americans showed up. And they had all these kits. You make your own homemade Geiger counters. And they sent people out, volunteers in Japan, with these homemade Geiger counters. Garbage Geiger counters. Still finding millions of atoms, counts per minute. And these were garbage Geiger counters, by the way. That at best can find a fraction of the gamma that was in the ecosystem. You can't find plutonium, can't find uranium, can't find americium, can't find neptunium or xenon or krypton or the 1,100 other isotopes that you absolutely unequivocally need to worry about. Send us people who don't mind dying. I never get tired of this story. I'll play the video, but not today. I've played it so many times. So are they talking about nuclear scientists, or are they talking about your loved ones, I wonder? You can't quantify a child being radioactive with a Geiger counter that would have broke the first day they used it and should have been sent back to be recalibrated. They didn't abandon all those communities because there's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine, okay? They really didn't. One or more of the buildings exploded, ejecting radioactive material around the site. There's 4 buildings exploded. 4 reactors are 100% gone, and 8 fuel pools with 8 reactor cores, or 4 reactor, or it's a lot more than that, but we'll say 4 reactor cores per fuel pool. 8 per building. Counting the other one is 9. But each reactor core is 100 times Chernobyl because it's pure uranium, pure plutonium. There are spent fuel and pellets. That's reactor 1 blowing up. That's reactor 3 blowing up. There are spent fuel and pellets and whatever all over and whatever. The NRC, tops man in Japan. They were created post-Fukushima, by the way. Trying to clean it up, but dose is still going to be incredible. Yeah, doses are going to be incredible. Comes in a bag and lands on your plate. If you want cancer, the best way to get it is go to Japan or eat your Japanese food. That they're shipping it all to your countries worldwide. Shocking. The officials made it mandatory to use radioactive food in school lunches. As fear lingers, Fukushima rice rebounds. It rebounds because nobody knows what it is or where it's still. They just decided to stop saying it was from Fukushima. A Fukushima prefectural government worker advertising rice from his prefecture at a Tokyo commercial facility in November 2018. This is some serious evil. So, because no one wanted it, they just got rid of the name. Dropped the price a little bit. There's no shortage of evil. There's a big fucking shortage of good people, of brave people and courageous people and people with integrity. This is like we cannot sit in silence. We can't win any kind of a battle by sitting in silence. And every time you shine a light on this industry, it defecates all over itself and it wipes it all over itself so you won't look at them. Shipments of Fukushima rice have rebounded since 2011. This one farmer, the bulk of his annual harvest of 15 tons is designated for industrial use. Convenience stores and restaurants where your children and your friends go. And simply labeled as domestic product. The farmer said, I'm sad about it. I'm so confident in the rice I grow, so I wish to sell it openly under the Fukushima label. So they interview him because he's stupid as frig, right? And rice from the northern eastern prefecture is still struggling to reach pre-disaster levels for household use because of lingering concerns about radiation. Yeah, 30 million bags. If 30 million bags don't concern you, you're a very, very good slave. You can probably work for the nuclear industry, actually. They'll pay you a ton of money. They'll pay you so much money it'll make you sick. All your dreams can come true. So if you ever get a speeding ticket and you're in front of the judge and they ask you why you were speeding, you say, well, I ate a lot of Fukushima rice. I'm not thinking too clearly anymore. The comeback was driven by solid demand for industrial use rice, not from Fukushima rice, but industrial use rice, for products sold at convenience stores and dishes served in restaurants. There was no demand for radioactive rice, you know what I mean? According to the Farm Ministry survey, industrial use accounted for 65% of shipments of rice produced in Fukushima Prefecture In the year through June 2017, one of the highest ratios in Japan. So industrial use accounted for 65% of the shipments of rice. The no-name rice, from Fukushima nuclear wasteland. Oh, by the way, no comparable figures are available, though, for the pre-disaster period. Of course there is. You really think there's no data available? And there's high demand for industrial use rice from Fukushima Prefecture, which is cheap for its taste, one distributor said. One monster had said. I can't reconcile this evil. I just can't sit in silence. I apologize. I wish I was an obedient slave, but I just can't sit in silence. Industrial use rice often only carries a domestic label, no mention of the production area. And since 2012, all bags of rice produced in the Fukushima Prefecture were subject to prefectural government's blanket testing, which cost $54 million each year. And since August 2015, no rice was found with radioactive substances exceeding the central government safety standards, which is absolutely impossible. And first off, their standards are based on cesium-137 instead of the 1,100 other isotopes are not mentioned or looked for. And the prefectural government in October began sending its workers to rice shops across Japan to advertise the taste and safety of Fukushima rice. The taste and safety in the same sentence. Evil really does exist. The leaked emails show the British government worked with nuke companies on the public relation campaigns downplay Fukushima, and that the degree of collusion was shocking, truly shocking. I actually got a whole folder that it must be 2 months old or something, 3 months old. And it sits, I always move it right into the empty spot at the end of my desktop so I don't lose track of it. But I never do it. Maybe we'll cover that one tomorrow night, about the public relation firm's campaign to manipulate and deceive and coerce you into stupidity, into giving yourself cancer. 30 million one-ton bags. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Have a nice day. The top government official, Fukushima nuclear report was so shocking, we decided to treat it as if it didn't even exist. Well, that was pretty brilliant. That's why we got all these academics, right? And the only reason you see these bags is because they want people moving into them houses. No. You got to bring your kids. That's cheating. You don't bring your kids. And they were paying up to $19,000 for people to move back to these nuclear wasteland. Is that high quality picture, I wonder? Let me change, because that could be fun. Better way, mate. Number 3, they say. Number 3, Dana. Da. There we go. Let's get over here. No, that's not the high quality picture. It is the high quality picture that blew the lid off this story, and I was able to zoom in. This is just a screen capture of the high quality picture. I got it there somewhere in its original, and we were able to zoom in and extrapolate all these pictures. It was the only time we had a very, very high quality picture that we were able to zoom in and get a perfect picture on the reactors, and what we found was horrifying. The tanks were built to lull you into complacency. Oh, look, it worked. Seeing mountains of radioactive waste in Yokohama, I felt the ominous weight of a nuclear crisis, the Mancini reporter said, which had seemed a distant affair to me until then. Yeah, imagine going there. Well, this is an artificial intelligence that I made, but here's the real picture. Notice the plants growing out of the side of it? But see, there was 150,000 sites like that one there, and so I'm creating, I have around 2,400. That number is going to rise, trust me, over the next few days. We have 1,150 of these pictures posted up at my website. Those links are directly below the video. And they're free to download and reuse. So you don't have to go through the misery that I went to create all those pictures. Workers say ground under Fukushima plant is cracking. And the radioactive steam is coming up. Which means you have to run away. And so this person here, you see, he's spraying what they call a reagent, which is meant to bind to the particles to stop it from splitting atoms into the local environment. So he would have died that afternoon or that hour in his paper suit. And they basically would have just buried him in a pit or incinerated him. He's so radioactive, you couldn't bury him in a graveyard because it would set off Geiger counters 100 feet away. That's blatant murder is what you're seeing right there. The TEFCO confirms the steam coming up from the ground at reactor 1 outside, where the ground is split from the China syndrome, is at 4.7 sieverts per hour. This is October, which is 20% more than it was in June. You are not going near that. So what they had done was, that whole area in particular, they had put down steel plates. I think they were 8 feet by 16 foot steel plates, and the remote control crane would bring it in and lay them down. And then they went in with cement trucks and cemented everything. Then they went in with pavement and paved over everything. And they've done that in some places 10, 12 times. Because the China syndrome split the earth open and steam coming into the ground. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose, for instance. 4.7 sieverts in steam coming out of the ground is the whole site disappears in steam. If you're on the site, you die. If you walk through that, you die right there on the spot. Your organs melt right away, and you'll be trying to run away. You'll feel all this agony. Your organs are melting. You'll stop and squat down, drop your pants and squat down, and excrete your organs, and you'll die right in that position. And we know that because that's what happened at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. TEPCO needs to check if high radiation doses are spreading elsewhere. 2 more spots appear to be above 10 sieverts per hour. That's where all nuclear scientists should have to run past that twice a day till they drop dead. But no plans to actually take measurements. Yeah. You want to make a couple $1,000, you got to run over there and run back. If you make it back, I'll give you $2,000 cash. Here it is. Oh, he never made it. Let's put a big marker over right there to keep people away. This is why 16,000 employees ran away from this site in just a short period of time. Because they were watching people just drop. This is why they were trying to build robots to pick up bodies. Oh, no, it's to rescue people after earthquakes, Dana. No, it was to go to get the bodies so the homeless would go back to work. Because it made them a little nervous when you see all these dead bodies around, right? This is Medusa Reactor 3. Any nuclear scientist on the planet who's seen that way, well, there's no fuel pool there. She's gone. Long, long gone. And when you see the snow, it makes you complacent, right? Oh, snow. That's radioactive snow. That's a nuclear wasteland in overdrive. United Nations degenerates said we wouldn't expect to see any health effects in children or workers or anyone else. So eat up your radioactive food, stupids. They literally call us stupids, right? That's their nickname for humans, is stupids. Plebes on top of that. That's another word to use. Radioactive plants and trees and bushes grown out of 1-ton bags of radiation. That is the scariest. This is the scariest picture imaginable. It's just a terrifying picture. And then you got Dr. Jerry Thomas from Imperial College of London. It's the duty of the scientific community to reduce the public's fear and anxiety by radiation. No health danger from 876,000 microsieverts per year. It's just shy of a sievert, right? And the kind of doses we're talking about, the place we're talking about, this is you get sick and die eventually. There's no maybes about this. it's the duty of the scientific community to reduce the public's fear, anxiety, aberration. Now, 35.8% of the Fukushima children have tumors, around 2 centimeters or bigger. And child's thyroid is only 2 by 3 centimeters. An adult is 3 by 5. So that's a big tumor. And the thyroid, of course, makes hormones for your whole body, for everything in your body. So there's not a single hormone you're going to produce that's not going to be a radioactive hormone. Your body has no way of dealing with that. Only getting sick. And so the studies pre-Fukushima was 1 to 2 per million would have thyroid tumors. And so 13,646 out of 38,000. These are numbers that we, like if you had an alien attack upon Earth, this is numbers you would expect to see. This is 358,000 out of a million. It used to be 1 to 2 per million. Now it's 358,000 out of a million. It's unbelievable numbers. But they're very, very true, and with good reason, too. Fukushima worker, we need kamikazes. Oh, indeed. When everybody works at these places, they're kamikazes, and they don't know it. TEPCO paid for the creation of a blacklist of apples, actors and musicians who are against the nuclear industry. That includes you if you're here. You're going on a big old blacklist. I heard they got my name on it. I'm trying to lay low, right? I'm not trying to stir up the hornet's nest. I'm pretty chill. But for some reason, whenever I talk about food, I get really upset about it. It really irks me. Because we've covered so much over so long. Not just cancers, heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. Japan's worst case scenario assumed significant public exposures to occur by the end of March 12th because of pressure buildup that would damage the number 1 reactor container. Then reactor 2 blew up, reactor 3 blew up, reactor 4 blew up, the fuel pools all blew up, they all blew up. Radiation levels of several dozens of sieverts. Possible near reactor 2. How could you not be several dozens of sieverts? 3 sieverts is a lethal dose to a human. I like how you'll get them a lot of times. 50% of the people exposed would die within the first 30 days. Would die within about 30 days, rather. And then the next sentence is supposed to be, and the rest had already died. It's not 50% as everybody's exposed to it will die from it. And eating it is just another way to kill you. It's a brutal way to friggin' die. It's a brutal way to die. Vegetarian is the way to go. The whole story is just so heartbreaking, but we have so many pro-nuclear out there cutting your throat all day, every day. And a lot of, for many years, we also do a 12-hour news cycle, 24-hour news cycle. Now, I guess it is a 12-hour news cycle. I'm only awake for those, I guess, longer than that. And we take the local news, the nuclear news, over 24 hours, and then cover it within 24 hours. And we only cover it if they're telling a lie. And every story is going to be, every paragraph is going to have multiple lies in it. And so you actually can't get through the 24-hour news cycle on nuclear. And all you can do is just blah, 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 lie, blah, 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 lie. Here's the truth, here's truth, here's truth, lie, 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 here's truth, here's truth. And you do that for 2 hours, and you get back in the saddle, do it again the next night. Like, it's so, the industry is so evil. It's normal. It's 100% normal. Evil is the norm. Hating you is the game. That's the name of the game. They leave their animals and pets behind. Every amount of radiation exposure increases your risk of cancer. Oh, yeah. There is no safe levels. It's not just cancer. It's heart problems, liver, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. International Atomic Energy Agency today admitted there is no such thing as safe levels of radiation. And that the standards are based on natural stuff, not man-made stuff. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. The standards are based on bananas, potato chips, and walking in the sunshine, not uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, strontium, xenon, krypton, and everything else. If that's not reason to get rid of the International Atomic Energy Agency, what is? The preeminent academics, the International Atomic Energy Agency, are all professional academics. Scientists, no less. That's why I have so much contempt for scientists. They're the ones that are going to cut your throat. A drop of a hat too, baby. Japanese media, things are going badly. Fukushima is the same as a war, says a military officer in charge of forces at the plant. Concerned that the workers on the site don't consent to join the battle. Crime is skyrocketing. People were held hostage. Unprecedented ocean contamination. It's completely out of control. It's shocking how many people died in Fukushima. Cremated bodies of the Fukushima homeless workers found near the plant. Such a high rate of cancer being detected in the Fukushima children. 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. Oh my goodness. North America will not be safe from the radiation from Fukushima if the plant keeps leaking. Using the word, like, when a plume covers the entire planet and somebody calls it a leak, am I wrong or am I wrong? Don't you just want to punch him in the freaking face? I know you can't, right? I want to take him, put him in a plane, fly him to Japan, get him in a helicopter, bring him over to Reactor 3 and drop him down on it. And we had one scientist who took me to court and convicted me for wanting to do that to him. Like, it was just meant to drag me through the court system like a slap suit, right? To tie me up in litigation. It's clear, like, it was clear. There's no way I'm going to put him on a plane, fly him to Japan, get a helicopter, fly him to Fukushima and throw him out of the fucking helicopter down on Reactor 3. There's not a judge on the planet should say that's possible. Except for the one that they brought in for my trial. Whose job was to convict me. And they just wanted to protect their assets. They wanted gag orders against me, and that's what they gave me. They didn't send me to jail or something. They gave me gag orders. Actually, 6 gag orders altogether. For 3.5 years, for instance, that I couldn't talk about their assets for 3.5 years, because that was the most time they can give me, right? And I remember the judge, like, looking at the prosecutor, what's the most we can give him? And the prosecutor's like, hang on. It's 3.5 years, Your Honor. And he's like, 3.5 years. You old criminal, Dana. Thank you. Come again. Scumbag industry. 6 in 10 children tested have diabetes. The head of the Tokyo area medical clinic says we're expecting diabetes in children from Fukushima radiation. That's the first year. 865,000 extra cancers. 6 in 10 children got diabetes. 13,646 of the 38,000 got tumors. Are producing radioactive hormones for the rest of their short lives. 14.2% of the children being born in Japan needs open heart surgery because of congenital malformations, which is 14,200 children for every 100,000 across the entire country needs open heart surgeries. The pre-Fukushima, this simply would never be conceivable. Oh, look at the yummy rice. Oh boy, oh boy. I want some rice, don't you? Mind-blowing die-off of seabirds on the way from California to Alaska. And this is unprecedented. Every bird we're seeing is starving to death. Geez, you don't suppose you broke the food chain, do you? Yeah, maybe. A plague along the west coast as biologists fear an extinction of species. I was on the ocean doing research expeditions during this. Take your kids to the beach and see them before they're gone. The worst outbreak ever known in the ocean. Catastrophic losses nearly everywhere we've been. Being me. Total extinction event. The largest disease outbreak that we know of ever in the oceans, now hitting the west coast. Potential for a global extinction. Global extinction. Global extinction. You know, global. Top Hong Kong newspaper, Hong Kong. Fukushima is a global threat. Catastrophic for the entire planet, not just Japan. Catastrophic, the Australian media. Catastrophic radiation contamination of rice fields 60 kilometers from Fukushima. No crops for at least 300 years. You wish. Oh, by the way, New York Times. Radioactive materials like cesium were brought back to the surface soil each year by plant growth and, you guessed it, pollination. Radioactivity of 14,000 atoms per square meter in the rice paddies far from Fukushima, and the crops are to be sold in Japan this year. Made in Fukushima, that is dangerous rice. Made in Japan is dangerous rice. Over 1 million Japanese still living in an area with high radioactivities. And previous cesium limits in rice pre-Fukushima was 0.1 atom per kilogram. Now it was 1,000 times higher. Because they're only acknowledging cesium, that's the number one reason you should have nothing but contempt for everybody in the nuclear industry. The biggest lie on the planet is that cesium propaganda, which is terrible, but it's you're ignoring the real horrors. Rice planted 10 miles from the nuclear meltdown. They can't stay in the town overnight, and it's intended for sale. Rice planted in a former no-go zone. Just if it's a no-go zone, it's always a no-go zone, which is a nuclear wasteland, right? Rice grown nearby. Fukushima plant cleared for sale. The farmers, I wouldn't eat it. We feel guilty growing it and selling it. Trying to make a living, being told that it's okay, being paid to grow it, and you're going to lose everything if you don't. This is not... Evil got nothing on these people. Tokyo professor couldn't help but help feel pity for the trees. X-ray-like images shows the spread of radioactivity, equivalent of miscarriages, stillbirths, malformations. Fukushima radiation causing serious biological effects, a major irreversible shift in the ecosystem, high rates of abnormality and mortality, severe damage to the humans next. Yeah. We're almost through. Groundbreaking Fukushima study reveals Fukushima nuclear waste is poisoning wildlife. Up to 99% of the offsprings died after eating the low-level contaminated food. They took plants from the houses, the abandoned houses, brought them to Tokyo and fed it to the insects. 99% of them died. So the X-rays were showing the damage to the trees and animals and plants and everything else. Just say no to radioactive Japan. X-ray-like images show how radioactivity is spread throughout the bodies of the Fukushima wildlife. So you can't say they don't know. And when you do this and suggest that it's good, it's the biggest crime against humanity conceivable. Japan government promotes the idea you're a racist if you avoid the radioactive products. Nuclear activists to be constantly spied upon. Fukushima radiation apocalypse. And this last story is not supposed to be here, but what would Queensland, Australia, worst case nuclear scenario look like? Farmers. All your food is radioactive. That's the worst case scenario, and that's already happening on a scale for 13 years. And you have every right to be upset about this. In fact, you're obligated to be upset about this. You're obligated to try to hold these people accountable. And there are people out there, when you learn this stuff, you will go to war and you will win the battle. We're counting on you. The world is counting on you to go to war against the most evil creature in human history, the nuclear scientist. The deadly, hateful nuclear scientist. How did we do anyway? We get through the show? Yeah, there we go. We've gone over by 5 minutes. Let's come in and clear the poll, I guess. Should stupid Japan be ashamed of themselves for poisoning everyone on Earth with radioactive food? Hell yeah, brother. I'm not going to hold you guys up any longer. Hi, everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, if all goes well. My feet are screwed up. They hurt, man. Always something in it. I always got something to complain about, that fella. I know. Through me. I got no idea what I got here now. I'm going to put the headphones on to see if it's going to be too loud before I start clicking like a crazy man. Come on, play, you rascal. That one don't want to play. Oh, I went and did it this time, did I? That one will play. How come the other one won't play? We'll see everybody tomorrow night. You have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Hugs for you, your friends, your families, your loved ones, your pets. I wish there was a lot more people out there pushing back. It wouldn't take many, like 100 people. It is what it is. I'm doing the best I can while we're waiting for the world to come to its senses. See everybody on the next show. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about in a long time. It's Fukushima food. We're going to burn them good tomorrow night, I can tell you that. Take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next round.